Hey guys, this video is to show you an example of the podcast and what you should be submitting for your end of the unit and last summative assessment of the year. So when you record, you do not need to do video. I'm just doing video, so I'm showing you in order to show you kind of what I'm doing. All right. So when you record, you can just do audio. And you're going to want to take those tips that are in that last lesson about how to speak clearly and enunciate and pace and all of those good things, and do your best speaking job. Now, if you make a couple errors, that's okay. You can quickly say, excuse me, or rather, in order to fix them. Don't just keep recording over and over and over and over until you get a perfect recording, because perfection doesn't really happen, okay? And so it's perfectly acceptable for you to make a mistake and to, clarify your error by saying, excuse me, or rather, and then saying the correct thing. All right, so you'll probably see me do that as I record. In order to record your podcast, you are simply reading what you have typed in your outline. And so that's why I have my outline here. I guess I should start with the introduction, shouldn't I? Okay, so I am going to start my podcast. And so the next time you hear me speak, it is going to be a sample podcast. By 2020, people living in the U.S. drank more bottled water than anything else, even more than soda, and retail sales were about $36.3 billion, according to Em Lee and Tom Warhol, authors of the Points of View article on bottled water published in 2020. The problem with the huge use of these water bottles is that they don't get recycled and instead pollute the planet in enormous numbers. Corporations are good at convincing us we need to buy their products. Somehow, the corporations that sell bottled water convinced Americans that tap water is unsafe, and so began the biggest waste manufacturing in the history of plastics: single-use bottled water. Single-use bottled water should be banned because it's a huge problem. Many places have already banned them, and the future will be better without bottled water. Single-use bottled water is a huge problem. The Beverage Marketing Corporation, BMC, reported that bottled water consumption between 1998 and 2002 rose 60% and has continued rising. In 2017, 20,000 plastic bottles were bought every second, and most of these bottles were drinking water. More than half of these bottles were not recycled, and of the bottles that were recycled, only 7% were used to make new bottles. The World Watch Institute says that nearly 80% of bottles are not recycled, and billions of pounds end up in landfills or litter every year. And it will not biodegrade for 1,000 years. Also, the bottles travel so far from where they were originally made that as much energy is needed to transport it as is needed to make it. The Ocean Conservancy's International Coastal Cleanup cited plastic water bottles as the third most found garbage after cigarette butts and plastic food wrappers. By 2025, some estimate that plastic waste will amount to more by weight than actual fish in the oceans. Studies have shown that most popular brands of water have microplastics that humans ingest, but it is unknown how harmful this is. In the 2020s, other studies found PFAS, chemicals in bottled water, which are toxic substances linked to different major health problems. PET stands for polyethylene terephthalate, which is what all bottled water is made out of, and the raw materials of PET are made from crude oil and natural gas. We all know that the environment is in dire need of care, but many of us don't think about water bottles as part of the problem. Single-use bottled water is causing much more harm than good. There are other ways to drink water than using single-use bottles, and many places are already taking action to ban them. In response to these concerns, many places have already banned bottled water plastic water bottles. Some cities in the U.S. and many college and university campuses have banned or restricted bottled water, hoping people will use reusable bottles instead. Concord, Maryland was the first U.S. city to ban bottled water in 2013 because of environmental and waste concerns. Other places and organizations that have banned bottled water use since then include San Francisco, the University of Vermont, the Detroit Zoo, and Grand Canyon National Park. When plastic water bottles were banned in 23 U.S. national parks from 2012 to 2016, 2 million plastic water bottles were prevented from being purchased, which amounts to 111,743 pounds of PET. The Detroit Zoo stopped selling water in plastic bottles in 2014 and installed 20 filtered water refill stations. They now sell reusable water bottles for less than they originally sold the disposable bottles for. The Detroit Zoo made $250,000 on bottled water, and stopping selling it will mean that they don't make that money anymore. But Janeway explains that the bottled water ban was not about money. Patricia Janeway, Director of Communications for the Detroit Zoological Society, said it was about the environment. Taking 60,000 plus water bottles, many that would be thrown away rather than recycled, and some that would end up as litter, out of circulation each year is a matter of the zoo being a good citizen. While plastic bottles have not been banned nationally in the United States, these examples of zoos, state parks, colleges, and even cities show that plastic bottle bans can be done and can have an immediate effect on the health of our environment. The obvious next step is to take these bans further and expand the plastic water bottle ban and its benefits throughout America. If more places follow this example and ban plastic water bottles, our future will be better. 68 billion plastic water bottles would be prevented from being made, used, and thrown away if the U.S. banned them, according to estimates. In 2018, Evian promised to make all of its bottles from recycled plastic by 2025, compared to 30% in 2018, one of the biggest promises in the industry. The parent company, Danone SA, hopes it will help their market shares and win over plastic detractors who are currently trying to get makers of straws, bags, and coffee cups to stop making these products. PepsiCo Inc. agreed to buy SodaStream in 2018 for $3.2 billion, which makes countertop machines that carbonate tap water, suggesting the deal would allow them to go beyond the bottle. Pepsi also sells reusable water bottles with flavor capsules to add flavor. Nestle is making glass and aluminum packaging for some brands and investigating ways to make all packing recyclable by 2025. Banning plastic water bottles would remove a huge source of pollution, and several major companies are finally on board with seeking alternatives that will help our planet. Plastic water bottles have become a familiar sight in America, but that doesn't mean they should continue to be one. Plastic water bottles are a major source of waste in landfills and oceans, posing health risks to both animals and humans. But some places are already fighting back with plastic bottle bans that reduce pollution and help encourage people to adopt better habits, such as reusable bottles. The tides are turning. They're already starting to turn, rather, on plastic water bottles as more people become aware of their costs and work to find alternatives. So next time you need a drink, join the effort and ditch those plastic water bottles for a reusable one. It won't be a waste. Okay, students, that is my podcast, and that's all that you need to do when you record. And remember, you only need to do audio. You don't have to do video. All right, thank you so much. Good luck as you finish your last summative assessment.